Well, hi everyone, and welcome along to today's webinar. My name is Roshni, and I head up customer success here at SuiteFiles. And today I'm going to be taking our SuiteFiles administrators through everything that they need to know about getting their site set up ready for everyone to use. So we shouldn't take longer than about 30 to 45 minutes today. If you do have any questions as we go through, just put them into the Q&A section, which you can hopefully see in the Zoom webinar tool, and I'll answer those as we go. Now, I've shared my screen with you, so you can hopefully see me all logged into SuiteFiles here. This is a newer view of SuiteFiles. So if you have had your SuiteFiles trial, or you've signed up maybe in November, then you'll be seeing a different view, but we will be rolling everyone out to this new view over the next month or so. So when we get back from Christmas in the new year, sort of mid-January, we'll have this version of SuiteFiles rolled out to everyone. Now for our SuiteFiles admins, what I'm going to be taking you through today is looking at your user setup, looking at security groups and folder permissions, as well as a few other things in there for good measure. So I'm going to start off by just talking a little bit about SuiteFiles and how it's all set up behind the scenes. It can really help if you need to troubleshoot anything happening for your SuiteFiles site. So the main thing is that SuiteFiles is built on top of your SharePoint Online site, a particular folder or a library, as they call it. So we're sort of deployed on top of your shared documents library. And so that does mean that we get to take advantage of a lot of the functionality offered by Microsoft. So things like autosave, as well as collaboration with your team on Office document types. And we've also added our own functionality into the mix as well. So that's where you'll see document signing or Connect, our client portal, coming into play. So it's a little bit of both. You get the best of both worlds. And the admin side of SuiteFiles, a lot of it does stem from what's happening at the Microsoft 365 end. So perhaps you yourself, you're a Microsoft 365 global admin. And so that will kind of allow you to manage your Microsoft 365 account as well as your SuiteFiles account as well. There is a particular SuiteFiles permission called SuiteFiles Administrator. They too get to do basically everything that I'll show you today. So first of all, I'll go into the admin settings, and you'll be able to do this by clicking on your name, the top right corner of SuiteFiles, and then selecting admin settings. And then we'll go down to users on the left-hand side here. Now, your users list is going to be fed in through from your Microsoft 365 account. And so by default, this page will show you who has access to your site. And you can change that view by clicking on the filtering here and perhaps selecting either all users or those with no access to your site. So for those who don't have access to the site, you'll see either an activate or reactivate button out to the right under their account section. So for Nick's test account here, I could reactivate him. So he's already a global admin, so he'll have slight access to SuiteFiles, but he'll need to be reactivated in order to get full access to SuiteFiles like any other user would. Then if you're managed by an IT firm, then from time to time, you may need to activate the global admin, and you can do that. If you click on reactivate, it will ask them, it depends on how many times you've deactivated them, however. So if you're reactivating someone, then you will have a limit to how many times you can deactivate them in a given month. So in this case, this is the very last time in this calendar month that I'll be able to reactivate Nick Test at Demo Suite. So just make sure that you're aware of that. The standard message for this one will be that you'll activate the user and this will enable their access to SuiteFiles apps, and it will also add the new user to your subscription. So once you hit activate, because I'm doing this on the 13th of December, then I'm just going to be paying for this user from the 13th till the 31st of December. So we do prorate your users based on the date that they're activated or deactivated. So that's how you bring somebody into your SuiteFiles site. If we have a look here, all of these people have been activated. And if you haven't done that yet, then feel free to go and do that now. You will need to activate your team members before you can add them to security groups, which we'll get onto shortly. And that really helps you to manage permissions and things like that. So who has access to which folders. Now, the other thing to note here on this screen is that we list the Microsoft 365 administrator role as well as the SuiteFiles role. And what you might see here is that we have certain users who are global admins, but they don't have anything in their SuiteFiles role. And now, as I was mentioning before, global admins kind of have power over all of the things. And so if you hover over this info, Amber MVV is a global admin in Microsoft 365, and this does mean that they'll also have full admin access in SuiteFiles. So just take a look at your users list. Anyone that has the info icon with full admin empty, it just means that they actually haven't had the SuiteFiles user role applied, but technically, because they're a global admin, they get access to everything in SuiteFiles. If you are wanting to just look at an individual user's permissions, so if we check out what Murray has access to, so he was a global admin, so technically he has full administrator access, but as standard users without, if you don't touch the settings here, then everyone will come on board as a standard user. If we go back into, say, let's have a look at Nick, for example. So he is a standard user, and we also have given him access to do all of the extra little things that are basically permissions based. So a standard user, so a standard member of your team, you can enable things such as billing and account access. You can allow them to delete files and folders. So we do keep the delete functionality under lock and key. So you can come in here and enable that permission for your team if you want to. Nick can download folders. He can manage templates. And finally, we're allowing him to change our custom branding. This is only relevant if you're going to be using SuiteFiles document signing. So you can go into the document signing area and update your branding for your emails that go out to your clients, as well as the signing interface that they see. So you can brand that with your logo, and you've got 2 color options there as well. Now, as for full admins, these basically override any other permissions. So I'm going to talk to you shortly about security groups. And a security group in SuiteFiles is a group of people. So you add people to a security group, give it a name, and then you can apply that group to a folder. So say we have a group of HR people, and so everyone's contracts are stored in this HR folder, for example. We can just apply the HR group to that HR folder, and only people within that group will be able to see the contents of that folder. People that aren't part of that group won't even see that the folder exists in the first place. So that's kind of an overview of how security groups work. However, if you have somebody who is a full admin, like this, then just note that as an administrator, this person, Nick, will be able to view all content in SuiteFiles. So if previously he hasn't been part of the HR group, but you're now making him an administrator, he will by default now get access, and you can't really change it. You can't change it. He will have access to everything across your entire site. So just keep that in mind. For this reason, we do recommend that you keep the full administrator access locked down to, potentially just one or two members of your team, it is always nice to have a backup. So yeah, have a really careful think about what you do there. I'm just going to cancel that, and that will just revert him back to being a standard access user. From this screen, you can also deactivate or activate that particular individual. Now, back on this screen, just another note is that once you do activate somebody, then that will fire off an email to their email address, and then that will basically let them know that they've been activated in SuiteFiles, and it will also give them your site URL. So that's the thing, the one key piece of information that everyone really needs to know about. So I do talk about it often in our webinars. So any training session or webinar that I do, I'll always talk about that site URL. So just make sure that the team are aware of that. They do need their site URL to log into all of our apps. And it's really important that they just include the HTTPS if they're ever, typing it in manually into a login screen. And also most people's sites will be your company name.sharepoint.com/sites/SuiteFiles, and that's your full site URL. So you need all of that info, not the full URL as you see here. Oftentimes if you are just navigating in SuiteFiles, it will have all this extra stuff at the end of it. So I often point them to the URL here, and you can absolutely copy and paste the URL into the login screen. So I'll talk more about that as we get to, logging into things with the whole team. So we'll skip into security groups next. So next on the list, now I'll just wait for that to load. So as I mentioned before, this is perfect for if you're wanting to restrict access to folders. So we have some examples of things that we've already set up here. So I've got the HR group, for example, and I've added the users Adam, Nainish, and Rosh. And so if you're wanting to add users to a group, you just click on the Add Users button. They do need to be active in order for them to be added into a security group. And if you need to rename the group, you can do so there and delete the group, and any permissions that it's got associated to it will also get removed as you delete the group. Back on the security groups tab, if you need to create a brand new security group, you just click the create group in the top right corner, give it a name. And the critical thing is to make sure that you add people to the group. So once you've added a group, then you shouldn't see the users as being blank. Just make sure that you add people to the group before you start applying. So yeah, any questions on that, then just let me know. But once you have created the group, then what you can do is jump into your files. So to get back to your actual main site in SuiteFiles, you can click Files. I could click SuiteFiles as part of this breadcrumb here, or the SuiteFiles logo. So any of these three buttons will take me back home. And let's just use the business. I might just put some permissions on the operations folder. I'm pretty sure there's already some permissions on the HR folder, so I'm just going to use the operations folder instead. And so once you're in a folder, you just click on the drop down here, and then you go into manage permissions. So when you first come into a folder that hasn't had permissions applied to it, the screen will look like this. And so it will say no permissions are currently applied. So you click on yes, and then you start to enter the group or groups who you want to be able to edit the files in this folder. So in this case, I'll just type in HR group and select that. And then within that is, I think it was Adam, myself, Nainish, and Nick. So we're part of this group. So if we're admins, it really doesn't matter. But for those that are standard users, they will now get access, they'll get access to this group, and anyone who's not part of this group will not see the operations folder at all. So there's no save button on this screen, so you just click on the X and that will save those changes. And if other people in the team who aren't part of this group, if they were to now refresh their SuiteFiles site, they will see the operations folder has been hidden from their view. There are some additional options when it comes to managing permissions. So under advanced, I actually might just add some more groups here first. So perfect for if you've got a couple of different groups added to one folder. If we click on the advanced options here, you can drill down and you can make people, or you can make groups, sorry, have read-only access if you want. So editing gives them full access as you would normally have. And if you do read-only, then they can open and view the file, but they can't make changes. So it's also handy if you just want to give some lightweight access, but do keep in mind, however, they would be able to take a copy of the file. So it's not, it's not completely bulletproof in that sense. And people can obviously get around things if they want to. They'll find a way. So keep that in mind. Super confidential information really should be set to edit for that particular group. Then none, as I mentioned, they won't be able to see that those files or that folder even exists. Now, some of you might want to create a folder for each of your staff. So I've got an example of that at my home level. We have personal folders here in our site. So I've got one and Sarab's got a personal folder. So you might want to create a folder, and we'll make one for Adam. Now this is simply just a folder called Adam. There's nothing added to it. It doesn't mean just only Adam can access the contents. So if I want to actually make it a locked down folder where only Adam and other admins can access the content, then I can go into the admin settings again, click on security groups, see if Adam actually does have a security group set up already. But you can see, yes, so we do. So if you're ever wanting to set up a personal space for your team, then the idea is that you create a security group. So I'll do Sarab's first. So we'll create a group, we'll call it Sarab. So I've created the group name, and then we need to still add Sarab to the group. So find him in this list. We'll find his group in the list, add users, type in Sarab, select him, click add. And now that's ready for me to apply to his folder. So if I go back into personal, find his folder. For folder options as well, you can also find them out to the right here. So click on the three dots and manage permissions, gets you to the same place. And I'm not sure what that one is. I'm not going to touch that, but I'm just going to add Sarab. So Sarab's a standard user. I've added his security group to his folder. So that means that no other standard users in my team will be able to see Sarab's folder. So he can just kind of use that as his work in progress, or save any other information into his workspace. Okay, so the other thing worth mentioning is that there is an integrations setup. So this is particularly important if you're going to be using Xero Practice Manager. And, oh, I don't want to navigate away from SuiteFiles. Oh, well, let's just go back. Okay, we'll start a new tab and just bear with me. I'll just log in to XPM. So one of the things with the integration between SuiteFiles and XPM is there are a couple of different ways that we integrate. So I'll take you through today the way that you integrate your whole site to Xero Practice Manager and what the impact of that is. And the best thing to do first is to log in. So apologies, I should have done this first. But we log into Xero Practice Manager. You need to be an XPM admin. So hopefully those of you on this call are XPM admins. And in order to set up the integration between XPM and SuiteFiles, you'll go into your business folder in XPM, click on settings. Then under staff, you'll need to locate your name. and click on your name and then scroll right down to the bottom and you should have this API access privileges section. There's only one checkbox here and you want that to be checked. So authorizing third-party full access is what we need. So save any changes that you've made to that area. And then in SuiteFiles, what you'll be doing is clicking on your name, then going into Manage Integrations. And I've actually already set mine up and I'm not able to disconnect it, but essentially you'll need to click the Connect button under the Practice Manager / Zero Tax option. So Workflow Max and Zero Practice Manager used to be kind of one and the same, but recently-ish, Zero have split those out. And so when you're connecting it, even though some people were referring to it as Workflow Max back in the day, it is its own thing now. So make sure that you are selecting the Practice Manager option, click Connect, and just follow the prompts on the screen. So once you've done that, then you can come back into SuiteFiles, and what that will enable is in your clients folder, you will start to see the Zero icons appearing. So how this works is if you do have a client that is in XPM, you can click on the 3 dots here and select View Client in XPM. And provided you're logged in, then it's going to take you into that client. There are other ways that we integrate with Zero Practice Manager, and that's with these links here that you can see. So these links are powered in a different way. So these are through our Chrome extension, which I'll be talking a little bit more about on our Thursday webinar. So if you haven't already registered for that one, make sure that yourselves and the rest of your team register for that. So it's 3 p.m. New Zealand time on Thursday. So there I'll be taking you through the installation of the Chrome extension, which powers those client links. But for you as the SuiteFiles admin, if you just do set up the integration like I showed you here, then that's kind of step 1 done, and you're setting up that integration from the SuiteFiles side into XPM. So those green icons here. And you're also enabling the ability to populate file or email templates with client information. So another really great functionality. If you're wanting to learn more about template population or creation and then population, on Wednesday, I go through that whole process from start to finish. So definitely come along to that one as well if you're not already registered. Now, there are some other things to be aware of. So if you click on your name in the top right corner and then go into download our apps, if you're not already aware, we have a few other apps. So I've also already mentioned the Chrome extension. So that is what powers the integration between Zero Practice Manager and SuiteFiles. So I'll take you through that in further detail on Thursday. Just note that everyone in your team does need to be using the Chrome browser in order to access this Chrome extension. So if you haven't already started using Chrome, now's the perfect time to do it. We do a lot of our development and testing in the Chrome browser as well, but we don't want you to miss out on anything in terms of the integration between us and XPM. So definitely have that Chrome extension installed. The other thing is the Outlook add-in. So this is the download link for the desktop version for Windows users. We do also have an Outlook add-in for those of you who prefer to use the web or the browser version of Outlook, or as well if you're using Outlook for Mac. So we have a different app that we have to deploy for your site. So if any of your team members do use the web version, or if they're using Outlook for Mac, then just get in touch with our support team at support@suitefiles.com, and they'll be able to deploy that app for you. And then you can go into, everyone can go into their web app or into their Mac settings and enable that. So we'll give you the full steps, just reach out to us. And for those of you who are wanting to learn a little bit more about the Outlook add-in, if you haven't already attended our basics training, then watch this space. I'll take you through that towards the end of your basics training in a bit more detail. So the Outlook add-in is an executable file. So if your team, if there are permissions on everyone's individual PCs, then you may need to reach out to your IT to get them to install it on everyone's PC. So each of these apps needs to be, and this is added to as a Chrome extension, so you get directed to the Chrome web store. These two apps here are exe files. So finally, the Drive app. So this is the one that allows you to access your SuiteFiles files from your desktop, and it's basically like accessing a drive in Windows Explorer. So this one comes with a little bit of a word of warning. So in our basics session, if you haven't already attended, I do talk a lot about how SuiteFiles opens up your files. So we want to get everyone working with their files using the SuiteFiles web app. So in the web app, you get to open up your Word and Excel, PowerPoint, those Office file types, and you also can open and work on PDF files as well. We have our inbuilt annotator and editor, so you can merge pages together if you're on SuperSuite, rearrange them, etc. And you can annotate them if you're on our SuperSuite plan. So I covered those basics off in our session and with the whole team, but it's just worth the admins knowing that the SuiteFiles drive is something that we can have that installed on people's computers, but we don't want them relying on that app to open and edit their files. So if I go into the drive, so it will install as, say, like an S drive. So I could double click on that, navigate through File Explorer to locate my file. And if I open a Word document up, I can make changes to it. I don't have the autosave function if I'm opening from Drive. So that's kind of strike number one. It just saves things back to SuiteFiles in a roundabout way compared to if you open them up from the web. The other thing is that you can't co-author or collaborate. So as I mentioned before, because we're built on top of Microsoft 365, we get to take advantage of some of their cool things that they offer. And so what we've found is that if people are opening up from the drive, but somebody else is opening up the same document from the web, then there can be a clash, a conflict, and someone's changes are going to lose out. And so we want as much as possible for people to be opening up and editing in the web app, because everything is going to be saved back. The other thing is that we want you to have the best experience possible. So as I mentioned earlier, we do all of our development and all of our updates in this web version. You've got the document signing, the connect, you can share files together to each other. You've got your recents and favorites. So there's a lot going on in the web app, and you just get very limited functionality in the drive. So that's a few little tips around Drive versus the web. And if anyone's got any questions on that, then do let me know. We do obviously need the Drive in situations where if you say have something like 0 work papers and you need to attach a supporting document, then you need to be able to navigate to your SuiteFiles documents, and navigating to your S drive on your computer is a really handy way to do that, to upload a copy of that file. So it has its little place in our world, and we just want to discourage as much as possible people jumping in and installing the Drive app without knowing the full ins and outs of it. So if you've got any further questions or any further doubts on that particular app, then please do let me know. We want to make sure that you've got all of the information that you need to make a decision. And some people will install it on everyone's computer, but just let them know that they're to use the web app as their primary way. And that's what I'm here for, to just make sure that your team are nice and comfortable using the web version. Okay, so the last thing that I'll talk about is the scanning function. And so if you currently have a system set up for your scans, then this is perfect for you. You can make a decision as to whether or not perhaps you want to move that across to SuiteFiles. And so the way that the scanning works in SuiteFiles is that you set up an email address for a folder, and then you pop that email address into your scanner, and then you can scan to that email address, and the scan is going to arrive in the More drop-down into the Scans area. So this here is you require to create a folder first. So it's just taking its sweet time. Just reload that. Okay, so we'll try that once more. There we go. So here we have some scans that people in our demo suite site have scanned to. And so the idea is that we kind of use this as an in tray for all of our scans, and we can click on the file. So we can click the icon here to preview the document. If it's come through really funny, then we can click the 3 dots and delete it. So that will delete it completely from your SuiteFiles site. If you need to download the file for whatever reason, clicking download will download the file to your local computer. So again, that will be externally from SuiteFiles. But the real idea here is to, once you've previewed it, you rename the file. And this name's actually looking pretty good. And we will click back, maybe in this case, to our clients folder, choose a subfolder, pop it, say now permanent, and then click file it. So that job report now has been relocated out of my scans folder and into the 16 candles limited permanent folder. So if I go 16, type in 16 candles here. We go. And if I go into the permanent folder, you can see that that job report that was in my scans is now in this permanent folder there. So the way that you set things up is that you go back somewhere to your home level, and most of the time people will set up a scanning folder within their business folder. So it just keeps it nice and tucked away. So it's really a means to an end. You're going to be creating a folder, which you can do by clicking the Create button in the top right corner and call it Scans or Scanning. See, I've got quite a few examples here, so I'm not going to create yet another folder. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Scanning folder here. And here, if we're just going to want to create one scanning email address that the entire team is going to use, then I would create the scanning email address against the scanning folder. So if I click the drop down here, there'll be an option to say create email address or create scanning email. We've changed the words recently, so apologies. That will generate an email address that you can then copy or just note down and enter into your scanner. If you have a number of staff who are responsible for scanning, or you can also see that we have a couple of examples here of 2 different offices. So if you want to keep the scans separate for whatever reason, then the recommendation is to create subfolders within the scanning folder. And this could be for employees. So I'll create a scanning folder just for Sarab, for example. So when you first create a folder, it's going to be empty. That's fine. For scanning folders, we don't want them to be filled with anything. We're just creating a folder so that we can create an email address associated to it. So I'm going to click Sarab's name, so the folder drop down, and there it is, generate scanning email. So we click that once, and then that email has been generated. I've got a little copy to clipboard option here, or you can just note that down, and I'll copy that. And now we'll jump into something I prepared earlier. To demonstrate what happens next, I'm going to actually just send this document, which is the PDF file. I'm going to send that to this email address. So I'll hit send, and I'm not going to auto-save this one. I'm just going to send that. And what's going to happen is that this scan is going to arrive in the Sarab folder, so in this location. But the way that we designed it was for you to be working out of the Scans tab. So it really is, at the end of the day, a move functionality. It's just that you get to preview, rename, and refile the document from within the scans area. So what I'll do is I'll just refresh this page, and you should find by now that that document has now found its way into Sarab's folder. So that's where it actually goes behind the scenes. Don't tell anyone. Now, if we go into the More dropdown and we go into Scans, we'll also see that the file is available to us from this location. So as I mentioned before, it's just a case of treating this like your in tray. So I wouldn't really expect all of this stuff to be in my list. I would expect my team to keep this up to date. But let's say we're happy with this one, looking good. We'll rename the file. And then in this case, and in most cases, if you're setting it up like we have within the business folder, then if it's a client scanned document, you'll be clicking home, clicking clients, and then you can type the first few letters of your client's name into this drop down here. So we'll go Mitzi Accounting. We'll pop it into her engagement folder. Oh, and we'll give it a new name. There we go. Now it's happy. So we'll file that into Mitzi's engagement folder. And once that's been filed, it will be grayed out from this area. If we go back into Sarab's scanning folder, you can see that the folder is again empty. And if we look up Mitzi Accounting, go into her engagement folder, we can go date last modified. The info pack has been moved into this location. So have a think about if that scanning process will work for you and your team. The idea with getting everyone set up with their own personal folder is that it'll be really easy for them to just kind of ignore Sarab stuff and just, look at Nisha's stuff, for example. So that's how you can kind of organize things. So I hope that helps. Now, that does really bring us to the end of today's session. So if there is something that you're really keen for me to go over and I haven't, then please do let me know. And I will do my absolute best to help answer your questions. Otherwise, I hope to see you all at one of my other webinars later on this week. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.